Welcome to the
Unpopular Opinions.
Unpopular opinions.
Have unpopular opinions.
Unpopular opinions.
Okay, so what's an unpopular opinion?
Unpopular opinions.
To utter such blasphemy. He's got the nerve, the audacity, the unmitigated gall to echo such blasphemous nonsense. Just blasphemy.
How y'all doing today? I want to welcome you to yet another episode of the Unpopular Podcast. Today I'm going to hit you with a little two-parter. Today I'm going to discuss why I think Damian Lillard might or might not be a top 5 point guard in the NBA today. And I'm also going to talk about backcourts and who has the greatest backcourt in NBA history. So stay tuned. So I was cruising through Instagram one night and I saw a post by Cycle asking, is Damian Lillard a top 5 point guard in the NBA today? And it really got me thinking, man, because there is like I said before in like a last podcast, this is the golden age of the point guards. If you look around the landscape of the NBA, there's so many great point guards, and a lot of them could be considered all-time greats. Not saying that, of course, all of them are great, but there are really good point guards. And it really got me thinking, man, is Damian Lillard a top 5 point guard? So, of course, what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of rank my top 5 in no particular order until I get to, of course, Damian Lillard. You have Stephen Curry. I mean, I think that's pretty much, he has to be top 5, from winning 2 MVPs to being in the 50, 40, 90 club to winning 3 NBA championships, being, to me, the greatest point guard the greatest shooter of all time. Steph Curry has to be up there. You have Chris Paul. I mean, his resume speaks for itself. But if you want to know a little bit more about his resume, go listen to my podcast when I compared him to Jason Kidd and Steve Nash. But Chris Paul is, Chris Paul. Now, again, none of these are in particular order until I talk about Damian Lillard. You have Russell Westbrook. I mean, second year in a row, he averaged a triple-double. Next to a healthy a pre-injury Derrick Rose. He is arguably the most athletic point guard the league has ever seen. He's just a monster. And then you have Kyrie Irving. Champion, to me, has the greatest handle of all time. Also one of the greatest finishers below the rim of all time. What he did before he got injured with the Celtics, if the Celtics had Kyrie Irving during the NBA, Eastern Conference Finals, I believe they would have beat LeBron and the Cleveland Cavaliers. So, this is a big year coming up for, Kyrie, and we'll just see how it goes. But then we get to number 5. And to me, it is a toss-up between, I'm not going to say it's a toss-up between two, but let me talk about it. So you have Damian Lillard. To me, you have Damian Lillard and you have John Wall. A healthy John Wall. Now, when you're talking about who is better, you really have to ask yourself, what do you want? Do you want a score-first point guard? Do you want a point guard who pretty much, I'm not going to say only scores, but that's their best attribute? Do you want a point guard where you're not going to get as much scoring, but you're going to get more assists and you're going to get more all-around game? That's what you really have to ask yourself when you're comparing Damian Lillard to John Wall. As a career, Damian Lillard averaged 23 points a game. John Wall averages 19. However, and to be honest with you, that's like statistics-wise the only thing Damian Lillard is better at than John Wall. John Wall averages pretty much a block a game. He averages almost 2 steals a game. He averages 9 assists compared to Damian Lillard's 6. He averages, 4.4 rebounds compared to Damian Lillard's 4.1. And all the, most of the offensive shooting wise is all Damian Lillard. But when you look at the landscape of the Washington Wizards and of the Portland Trail Blazers, John Wall and Damian Lillard are the engines that go. As you saw last year, when John Wall was out, they did good for about 4 or 5 games. Then Washington just plummeted. Washington realized that they can't really trust, or I'm not gonna say they can't trust Bradley Beal, but Bradley Beal isn't really ready to be a number 1 option yet. And nor is Otto Porter ready to be a second option. So John Wall is the engine that is the Washington Wizards. And that also goes along with Damian Lillard. While you have CJ McCollum, and CJ McCollum is a great scorer and a great, guard, with Damian Lillard, that just puts Portland to a whole nother level, to a whole nother realm. Not saying that they're like leaps and bounds one of the best teams, but they are always a sneaky team, especially around the playoffs and in the playoffs. Now, no, I don't think that John Wall or Damian Lillard, are the best point guard in the league, but they are great point guards. So when thinking about and asking yourself if these are the, which one is better, in my opinion, again, it's about what do you want and what your team has. I don't feel like Portland would be as good as they are if John Wall was on the team, nor do I think the Wizards would be as good as they are if Damian Lillard was on the team. Damian Lillard is a scorer, man. Damian Lillard is one of the best scorers in the league. Damian Lillard would put up in fact, Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum to be exact, but Damian Lillard had a game this year where he scored 50 points in only 3 quarters, or 50 plus points in 3 quarters. And that in and of itself lets you know how much of a scorer he is. But then John Wall has had numerous games where he had 20 points and 20 assists, or 20 plus points and 20 plus assists. So I don't, being alongside Bradley Beal, John Wall is pretty much like a yin and yang, and they just fit together. Now, no, their personalities might not fit, but Bradley Beal is a score first shooting guard, and John Wall, while he can score, is a pass first point guard. When you look at Portland, you have Damian Lillard, who's a score first point guard, and you have CJ McCollum, who's a score first shooting guard. Now, while that might not bring as much success as they wish in the playoffs, it's that duo, as in Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum, propels Portland to. Think about it like this. When you look at Portland Trailblazers, in almost every preseason poll, they either have them on the towards close to the lottery teams or middle of the pack. But if you look at almost every playoffs, Portland's in there. Since that one playoff where Damian Lillard hit the game winner over Chandler Parsons in the Houston Rockets to bounce them out of, I think it was the first or second round, one of those two. But Damian Lillard is a scorer. But if you ask me, which is my Unpopular Podcast, I would pick John Wall over Damian Lillard. And that not only is that because John Wall will give me a little bit more as far as get the team involved with his passing, but I'm going over the defense. Now, Damian Lillard, not saying he is. No, I'm gonna just say it. Damian Lillard is one of the worst defenders in the league. Now, and he's already stated that, most of his focus is on the offensive side of the ball, and that's okay. But when we're talking about point guards and when we're talking about the best, one of the top 5, I want a point guard who can at least give you something on defense. Now, of course, you're gonna hear, but what about Steph Curry? Steph Curry is a terrible on-ball defender. Steph Curry this, Steph Curry that. Steph Curry is actually one of the best point guards when it comes to playing the passing lanes and getting steals. In fact, the year that he won the unanimous MVP, I believe he was the steals leader as well. So while Steph Curry might not be the greatest on-ball defender, which he definitely isn't, but he's a very, very good player, like a very good point guard that can play in the passing lanes and get steals. Damian Lillard doesn't even do that. Damian Lillard, he's not worse than James Harden, but he's up there in that category when it comes to defense. John Wall, on the other hand, John Wall isn't like a lockdown defender, but John Wall is a very good defender for his position. John Wall, I think being 6'3", 6'4", John Wall is famous for his chase down blocks. When he takes opponent seriously, which that's one of the problems of the Wizards, they play down to their opponents. But when John Wall plays against a great point guard or plays against somebody where he needs to lock down, he's going to do what he has to do to lock him down. Of course, there's some instances where he doesn't, but all in all, John Wall is a way better defender than Damian Lillard. And when I'm thinking of what I want out of a point guard, if I can't get the scoring like I get from Steph Curry or Kyrie Irving or Russell Westbrook, or if I can't get the passing like a Lonzo Ball or a Chris Paul, and when you hear me say Lonzo Ball, I'm not saying he's top 5, I'm just saying. But if I can't get that from my point guard, then I want something. I want something on the defensive end. And the great thing about John Wall, and of course I'm saying all this and I'm prefacing all this as when everyone's healthy, John Wall is one of the best point guards in the league, hands down. John Wall not only gives you, he'll slow down your top guard, but he'll give you 15, 16, 17 assists with 20, 19, 20 points. And that is, to me, an all-around game. Now, no, I don't think he's the best all-around point guard, but we're talking about him as in John Wall compared to Damian Lillard, and I'll pick John Wall. So, with that being said, my top 5 in no particular order is Stephen Curry, Kyrie Irving, John Wall, Russell Westbrook, and Chris Paul. And number 6 would be Damian Lillard. And don't hear me say that as in Damian Lillard is a bad player, because he's not. Damian Lillard is still one of the best point guards in the league. Being 6th out of a league of 30 teams is incredible. But and I'm putting him over Ben Simmons, even though it technically says power forward, but he plays point guard. You know what I'm saying? Ben Simmons, a healthy Mike Conley. I'm putting him above a Alonzo Ball. I'm putting him above players like that. Damian Lillard is a great player, but I just feel all around, and when healthy, John Wall is a better player. I feel I'm getting more out of John Wall, which is points, assists, rebounds, blocks, than I am getting with Damian Lillard, which is mostly just points. And that leads me to part 2. When we talk backcourts in the NBA, this also is a golden age of, actually, this might not be a golden age of backcourts, but I do think that the greatest backcourt of all time is in the NBA right now. Now, when you look at the NBA, you have, like, the Wizards have a great backcourt in John Wall and Bradley Beal. You have, of course, like I said, Portland, who has Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum. You have, and this is depending on, how they do next season, but you have Lonzo Ball and Brandon Ingram, who's probably going to play a lot of the 2, hopefully, over KCP or Josh Hart. You have James Harden and Chris Paul, who I think if they keep going for years to come, because Chris Paul did just sign that max contract for about, I think, 4 years. If they keep building momentum, and they keep if they hopefully win it, no, I'm not gonna say hopefully, if they win a championship, then I will propel them over who I think the current best backcourt in the league is, and possibly, I think Steph Curry and Klay Thompson is the best backcourt of all time. I'm gonna let that sink in for a second. Steph Curry and Klay Thompson is the greatest backcourt of all time. But Jay, man, you got the entire NBA, the entire history of the NBA. There have been great backcourts. There have been great players. There have been this, that. How you gonna put a current team? The league has changed. Look at Steph Curry and look at Klay Thompson. When you compare, now I'm not saying them individually is greatest at their positions, but what I'm saying is them as Steph Curry and Klay Thompson together is the greatest backcourt of all time. You have, to me, the greatest shooter ever in Steph Curry, and the second greatest shooter ever, yes, over Ray Allen, over Reggie Miller, over Chris Mullin. The second greatest shooter ever in Klay Thompson in one backcourt. Not to mention, Steph Curry is a great facilitator as well. Not saying he's the greatest, but he's a great facilitator as well. And on the contrary, Klay Thompson is a great defender, a great on-ball defender. In fact, he is in the running to be one of the best two-way players in the league, along with a healthy Kawhi Leonard, a healthy LeBron James. Klay Thompson is up there as one of the one of the best two-way players in the league today. So I had to look. You had so many great, or I'm not gonna say great, so many good backcourts. You've had, Steph Curry and Monte Ellis. You had Vince Carter and Jason Kidd. You had old DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry. You've had great backcourts, but I don't see one better than Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. Now, the biggest argument I had was, but Jay, what about Isaiah Thomas and Joe Dumars? While that is a great backcourt, and that is an all-time backcourt, of course, I look at the players individually. No, currently, I do not believe that Stephen Curry is better than Isaiah Thomas, but he's trending in the right direction. Give it a few more years, Steph Curry to me could be top 5 greatest point guards ever, and that's just how I feel. Steph Curry, he changed the game. Think about it. Think about this. And I was talking to a couple of people I hooped with the other day. Think about this. When is the last time, except for the other day when he retired, when is the last time you heard Roy Hibbert's name? When is the last time you heard Dwight Howard's name as in a dominant force? When's the last time you heard of a traditional center killing somebody in a game? And the last thing I can think of is when Dwight Howard had that 30-30 game, but I believe it was against Brooklyn, who has, I believe, a rookie or a second-year center who isn't really that, he's not that polished. Steph Curry has changed the game. He's changed the way that teams play. He's changed the way that teams look at personnel. He's changed the way that centers, how the NBA views centers. He's changed all that. Now players are if you look at AAU games, if you look at high school games, if you look at college games, look at a player like Trae Young. While Trae Young says, his biggest inspiration was Steve Nash, his game, or how he was in college, is just like Steph Curry now, taking deep threes, a great passer. He was the college Stephen Curry. Now, I'm not saying he will be, Stephen Curry in the NBA. I don't know, but he was the college Stephen Curry. Now you have players taking 40, 50 feet shots, and coaches aren't getting mad, if you can take it. Now you have centers who the league has always been a dump it down to the center, and they'll get the buckets. They'll fight down low and get to the line or get a dunk. Like Shaq. Shaq is one of the most dominant players to ever play this game. And that's all with Kobe. That's all they did. Feed him the ball and they won. But Shaquille O'Neal would not flourish in today's NBA. I'm not saying he wouldn't be dominant, but he wouldn't flourish. As in, Karl Anthony Towns is a dominant player. DeMarcus Cousins is a dominant player. But are they really flourishing? Are they really propelling their team to great? Man, Karl Anthony Towns had Jimmy Butler and Andrew Wiggins, and they got bounced out They didn't even really put up a fight in the playoffs. They almost didn't make the playoffs. If it wasn't for Denver losing a last couple games, they wouldn't have even made the playoffs. DeMarcus Cousins hasn't been relevant. While no, he is one of the best centers in the league, he hasn't been relevant when he was on the Kings, and even when he was on the Pelicans last year. They weren't making any noise with Golden State, which is a team with, of course, 3 of the top shooters in the league and 3 of the top shooters ever. Now, like I said, Steph Curry has changed the way we looked at the NBA and changed the way the NBA has been played, or how the NBA is played, which is why I do not think he's better than Isaiah Thomas. But give it a year or two, or you can really argue that he is better than Isaiah Thomas right now. I'm not going to go into the argument right now, but Steph Curry and Isaiah Thomas are, damn close. But then you look at Joe Dumars. Joe Dumars is a great player. I believe Joe Dumars is a Hall of Famer. But I'd have a hard time, especially in today's NBA, to put Joe Dumars over Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson is not a flashy player at all, except for when he's in China. But he's not a flashy player at all. But Klay Thompson is a monster. Klay Thompson is the guy that dropped 37 in one quarter. Klay Thompson is a guy, 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, that put up a 60-point game with 11 dribbles. Klay Thompson is the guy that slowed down Kyrie Irving in last year's finals. Klay Thompson always plays. Klay Thompson's the one that slowed down James Harden this year in the finals. I mean, in the Western Conference Finals. Now, when you look at a Klay Thompson, and I'm not saying he's the best shooting guard in the league today, but he is up there. He is one of the top 3 shooting guards in the league. When you have to put, James Harden, Jimmy Butler, maybe DeMar DeRozan, that's arguable, but Klay Thompson's up there. And when you put them together, as in Klay Thompson and Stephen Curry, you get a dynamic duo that is damn near unstoppable. Now, I was asked, but Jay, how about you said that James Harden and Chris Paul could be the best backcourt today. So if that's the case, how was Steph Curry and Klay Thompson the best backcourt? And I say it like this, man. James Harden and Chris Paul have only been together for 1 year. Now, yes, they were great when they were together for 1 year. They took Houston to heights I didn't expect. I thought they were going to struggle, honestly. I thought they were going to struggle out the gate, and they kind of did for the first 2-3 games, and they just took off. But they haven't really done anything. They haven't won a championship. James Harden's the only one of that duo that's been to a finals and got embarrassed by LeBron James and the Miami Heat, with Kevin Durant, might add. Chris Paul has only been to one conference finals. While Chris Paul is one of the greatest point guards ever, Chris Paul doesn't have accolades Steph Curry has. Doesn't even have the accolades that Klay Thompson has NBA wise. Now, yes, we're not talking about all NBA teams and rookie years and all that. We're talking about hardware. Steph Curry has 2 MVPs. We can take, if you want to take if you want to take the rings away, Steph Curry has 2 MVPs. Now, give it a few years, like I said earlier, give it a few years and maybe, they dethrone or Kevin Durant bounces in a year or two and Houston stays put and they win a championship. I can see, then we'll have a talk about, are they better than Klay Thompson and Steph Curry right now? Because they could be. They arguably could be. But I need to see more. I need to see more than 1 year. Which is why I'm not ready to put the duo of Steph Curry and Kevin Durant over Steph Curry and Klay Thompson just yet. I want to see, give it a few years. Because Klay Thompson, like I said, is a quiet assassin. Klay Thompson, like I said, will give you 37 points in a quarter, like it's nothing. So if you ask me, like I said, Klay Thompson and Stephen Curry is the greatest backcourt of all time. Oh, and another thing, people ask me, what about Jason Kidd and Vince Carter? Both of them are, if not current Hall of Famers, will be Hall of Famers. What about them? Or what about Manu Ginobili and Tony Parker? What about Allen Iverson and Eric Snow? I laughed when they said that. I'm like, really? You really putting Eric Snow in this conversation? Eric Snow? What about, Nick Van Exel and Kobe? Steph Curry is way better than Nick Van Exel. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Well, I'm sorry. And what about Jordan? This is what I say about Jordan. Jordan is arguably the greatest player ever, hands down. But did Jordan ever really have a great point? He played with Steve Kerr. He played with John Paxson. He played with Ron Harper. And I think it's BJ Armstrong? Steph Curry is better than all of them. Every single one of them. Now, yes, Klay Thompson is, he's not better than Jordan at all, of course. But, again, Steph Curry is. So, and to go back to Jason Kidd and Vince Carter, while they're great they're great. That's a great backcourt. If you asking me to pick today, it would be very hard for me to pick Jason Kidd and Vince Carter, who I believe actually had some success as in getting to the Eastern Conference Final, and I believe they went to the finals once or twice. But nah, I can't do that. That's it's hard. Look at the NBA, man. If you look at any game, you can see the impact that Steph Curry has on LeBron James. Last year, a fun fact. Last year, statistically, LeBron James was one of the best shooters from, I think, beyond 40 feet, which is well beyond 3-point line. He's statistically one of the best shooters. This was the first year in his entire career that LeBron James has ever taken more than 20 of those shots. Think about that. Think about that. And it's an eye test thing. And it's an eye test thing, but stats kind of back it up too. While people might have their gripes about Steph Curry and about Golden State as a whole, saying that, Golden State is trash. They needed to form a super team to beat LeBron James. Stephen Curry is overrated. This, that, and the third. Klay Thompson, he doesn't have any handles, or Klay Thompson's not really that good. You can hear it all. But at the end of the day, statistically, Steph Curry and Klay Thompson are one of the greatest backcourts of all time. The eye test proves that Steph Curry and Klay Thompson is one of the best backcourts of all time. And I'm not gonna say it's not close, because of course there's backcourts that have one person better than one person, another person better than another person, but it's never two players is better than Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. It's always, he's better than Steph, but he's not better. But the other one's not better than Klay, or he's better than Klay, but he's definitely not better than Steph. Yeah, man, that's how I see it. I believe in conclusion, I'm picking John Wall over Damian Lillard, which means I do not believe that Damian Lillard is a top 5 point guard in the league. And I believe Steph Curry and Klay Thompson is the best backcourt in NBA history. I want to thank you for listening to yet another entry or yet another episode of the Unpopular Podcast. If you disagree with what I say, leave it in the comments and we'll definitely talk about it. It is it's definitely a hot take when I'm looking at Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson as the best backcourt ever, because there's been great backcourts. I didn't even say Jerry West and Gail Goodrich. Yeah, I didn't even say Rip Hamilton and Chauncey Billups. There have been great backcourts in NBA history. So when I say Steph Curry, Klay Thompson the best, and you disagree, leave in the comments. If you're picking Damian Lillard over a healthy John Wall, leave in the comments. We'll talk about it. But until next time, again, I want to thank you for listening, and I will see you later. Much love.
Sublime. It's enjoyable to know you in the concubines. Niggas, take off your coats. Ladies, act like gems.